please, I've just come back to my flat and the door was locked, so I crawled into the window in my flatmate. It looks like she's been attacked. Please help. Oh my God, I've had... Oh, thank God, yeah. Harry Dillon. Harry.
She blocked him. She told the police. She begged them to listen. But no one came in time. Alice Ruggles was 24, bright, loved, and full of life. She feared her ex was watching her every move, and she was right. When her body was found, the truth was chilling. She didn't just fall victim to obsession, she was failed by the man who killed her, and the system that let him in. This is not just a story about stalking. It's a warning for anyone who thinks obsession is love. This is the murder of Alice Ruggles.
Welcome to Dark Chronicles, where shadows hide the truth.
It began like many modern love stories, with a message. A follow on Facebook. A few chats. Some late-night flirting. But within 2 years, Alice Ruggles would be dead, and the man who once promised her the world would be standing over her body, covered in her blood. This isn't a story about love. It's a story about obsession, control, and what happens when warnings are ignored until it's far too late. Alice Ruggles was 24. Bright, funny, full of life. She worked in Newcastle for Sky as a customer service rep, lived in a quiet flat in Gateshead, and had a circle of friends who adored her. Her Instagram was full of laughter and travel and sunshine. She wasn't someone you'd expect to vanish into the statistics of domestic homicide. But then again, most victims aren't. In 2015, Alice began dating a man named Trimon Dillon, a 26-year-old serving soldier in the British Army. To the outside world, he was charming, well-spoken, confident, even impressive. He'd served with the Royal Highland Fusiliers, posted in Afghanistan. But behind that polished image was a man obsessed with power. Especially power over the women in his life. From the very beginning, there were red flags. Alice's friends noticed how fast things moved. How quickly Trimon seemed to take over. He was possessive. He monitored her social media. He constantly questioned where she was, who she was with, what she was wearing. He even told her what to eat. It wasn't just overprotectiveness, it was control. And it only got worse. By mid-2016, Alice was miserable. She confided in friends that she felt trapped, manipulated. That Trimon would get furious if she didn't respond to his texts within minutes. That he once hacked into her Facebook. That he threatened to release private photos if she left. And then, finally, in October 2016, she ended it. She blocked him. She tried to move on. And for a brief moment, it looked like she could, but Trimon didn't let go. Over the next 2 weeks, he sent her more than 150 messages, on Facebook, on WhatsApp, via email. Some were apologetic. Others were cruel. Some begged her to take him back. Others accused her of cheating. The tone shifted constantly, like a man unraveling in real time. And then, he crossed a line. He began sending flowers and notes to her home. He made fake accounts to watch her online. And worst of all, he drove 120 miles from his army base in Edinburgh to Gateshead, and left chocolate and a letter on her windowsill. She hadn't given him her new address. He found it anyway. Terrified, Alice finally called the police. She told them about the stalking, about the unrelenting pressure. She even said she feared what he might do if he showed up again. But the police response? They gave Trimon a formal warning. A polite request: stop contacting Alice. Nothing more. 3 days later, on October 12, 2016, Alice was found dead in her bathroom. Her throat had been slashed 6 times. The police found no sign of forced entry, meaning she likely let her killer in. Perhaps she thought he was there to apologize. Perhaps she didn't expect him to escalate. Perhaps she had no idea what he was truly capable of. Her roommate, Maxine, discovered her. Blood everywhere. A scene no one should have to witness. And from the moment the 999 call came in, there was only one name on everyone's mind: Trimon Dillon. But catching him wouldn't be immediate. Dylan had returned to his barracks in Scotland, acting as if nothing had happened. When police arrived to arrest him, they found scratches on his face and hands. His story? He'd cut himself shaving. He claimed he hadn't seen Alice in weeks. But his phone data told a different story. So did his car's GPS. And when police checked the CCTV from near Alice's flat, there he was, walking away from her building the night of the murder. He was charged with murder. And suddenly, the case shifted, from a tragic loss to a national outrage. Because Alice had done everything right. She reported him. She blocked him. She sought help. And still, she died. What unfolded in court shocked even the most hardened observers. Trimon denied everything. He claimed Alice had attacked him. That she was emotionally unstable. That he went to her flat to talk things through, and that she attacked him with a carving knife. That he only acted in self-defense. The jury didn't buy it. They listened to the timeline. They saw the messages. They saw how Dylan lied to police, to friends, to his own commanding officers. They saw the scratches on Alice's face. The wounds to her neck. The sheer brutality of it all. In April 2017, Trimon Dylan was found guilty of murder and sentenced to life in prison with a minimum of 22 years. But for Alice's family, the pain was only just beginning. Alice's family, shattered by grief, was left with one question echoing over and over again: why wasn't more done? She had gone to the police. She had clearly stated she was afraid. And yet, the system, designed to protect, had failed her. In the aftermath of her murder, scrutiny turned not just to the killer, but to the very agencies meant to intervene. The investigation into Northumbria police revealed that just 10 days before her murder, Alice had called them to report Dylan's stalking behavior. The officer who responded didn't classify it as an urgent threat. There was no safeguarding referral. No surveillance. No protective order. Dylan was simply issued what's known as a PIN, a police information notice, a formal warning that has no legal weight. To most, that piece of paper was meaningless. To Dylan, it was a joke. And to Alice, it meant nothing had changed. Her fears were ignored. Her instincts dismissed. And within 72 hours of that warning, she was dead. The public reaction was swift and furious. News outlets across the UK covered the story with raw intensity. Why wasn't Alice protected? Became a national headline. Campaigners demanded reform. Domestic violence experts pointed out that stalkers often escalate, and that warnings rarely deter someone who sees control as a right, not a privilege. But to truly understand the tragedy, you had to look deeper, into the pattern. Trimon Dylan didn't just lose control. He never let go of it to begin with. Throughout the trial, his past behavior came to light. He'd dated other women before Alice. Some described him as intense, manipulative. One ex told police he became threatening when she tried to leave. Another said he'd faked injuries to guilt her into staying. These weren't isolated incidents, they were red flags no one stitched together until it was far too late, and then came the most chilling moment of all. During the trial, Dylan took the stand. He claimed he loved Alice. That her death was an accident. That he panicked. That he'd only brought a knife because he was scared she might attack him. But the forensic evidence told another story. The wounds on Alice's neck weren't defensive, they were precise. Deliberate. Deep, and then, prosecutors dropped the bombshell. Dylan didn't call emergency services. He didn't even check if she was alive. After slashing her throat, he simply left. Got in his car. Drove back to his army barracks. Cleaned up. Went back to work. Carried on like nothing had happened. That's not panic, that's calculation. The jury deliberated for less than a day before delivering their unanimous verdict: guilty. In April 2017, Trimon Dylan was sentenced to life in prison, with a minimum term of 22 years. The judge, Mr. Justice Sweeney, described his actions as cruel and determined. He spoke directly to Dylan in court, telling him, "You are controlling, obsessive and manipulative. You were determined to punish her. But Alice's family wasn't interested in punishment alone. They wanted change. And that's exactly what they set out to create. In the months following the trial, Alice's parents, Clive and Sue, launched the Alice Ruggles Trust, a foundation focused on raising awareness about stalking, coercive control, and the early signs of relationship abuse. Their goal wasn't just to remember Alice, it was to save others. They began speaking in schools, universities, and police departments. They advocated for changes in stalking legislation. And they weren't alone. Thousands signed petitions. MPs debated reform in Parliament. The case became a flashpoint in the growing movement against gender-based violence in the UK, and slowly, the ripples started to take effect. New training was introduced for police officers on how to handle stalking reports. The government committed more funding to support victims. And, crucially, a push began to reform the use of PIN notices, replacing them with more robust protective measures, because, as Alice's family often said, a warning is worthless if it comes with no consequence. Back in Gateshead, her friends continued to honor her memory in quieter ways. Annual charity runs, fundraisers, moments of silence. For those who knew her best, Alice was more than a victim, she was a light. A vibrant, funny, fierce woman who loved dancing, traveling, and late-night conversations about life and love. Her death left a hole. But her legacy was turning pain into purpose, and then, something unexpected happened. In 2021, Alice's story was retold in a gripping ITV documentary, The Social Media Murders. The program didn't just recount the crime, it showed the digital trail. The messages. The manipulation. The timeline of how obsession turned deadly. Viewers across the UK were horrified, not just by what Dylan did, but by how easily he did it. The show sparked another wave of conversations online. Parents, educators, and young people all asking, how do we spot the signs sooner? One of the most heartbreaking truths about this case is how ordinary it seemed, until it wasn't. Alice was smart. She had support. She did all the right things. And yet, that still wasn't enough, because sometimes, the system doesn't break, it just fails to act, because sometimes, warnings are heard, but not believed, because sometimes, a killer doesn't need to hide, he just needs to wait. As the courtroom lights dimmed and cameras pulled away, what lingered wasn't just the brutality of what Dylan did. It was the terrifying ease with which he did it, and the missed chances to stop him. For the police, this case became a reckoning. An internal review at Northumbria Police acknowledged procedural shortcomings. The officer who handled Alice's original stalking report had not escalated it to the safeguarding team. He hadn't visited Alice's flat. He hadn't even flagged the call as urgent. In response, new training modules were developed, focusing specifically on stalking and coercive control. Officers began receiving briefings not just on legal definitions, but on patterns, emotional red flags that often come before physical danger. And it wasn't just about frontline responders. The Crown Prosecution Service re-examined how stalking charges were brought forward. Instead of waiting for violence, prosecutors were urged to act at the first sign of obsession. Alice's case changed policy. But it came at an unimaginable cost. Meanwhile, the media kept her name in headlines. The BBC aired a radio special. The Daily Telegraph ran a feature titled The Murder that exposed the flaws in British policing. Social media lit up with tributes, stories, and haunting questions. One post from a young woman read, "I used to think if I blocked him, it would stop. Now I'm not so sure." Another simply said, Alice deserved more. Her family received hundreds of letters. Survivors of stalking. Families who had lost daughters, sisters, mothers. Many had similar stories, police minimizing threats. Systems taking too long, abusers hiding behind charm. Some of the most chilling messages came from other ex-partners of Dylan. One woman described how he isolated her, tracked her phone, and accused her of cheating almost daily. Another said he once told her, "If I can't have you, no one will." At the time, they thought it was just drama. Now, they realized it had been a warning. What made Alice's case so tragic was that she wasn't silent. She spoke up. She reached out. She acted. And yet, despite the phone calls, the messages, the physical visits, nothing concrete happened. Because legally, stalking is a gray area. Hard to prove. Easy to dismiss. Until it isn't, the court transcripts from Dylan's trial remain some of the most chilling in recent UK legal history. He claimed Alice attacked him. He claimed he only went to make peace. But the evidence painted a different picture. He brought a bag containing gloves. He wiped down surfaces. He deleted texts. He tried to craft an alibi. This wasn't a man panicking in self-defense. This was a man executing a plan, and that bag he carried. Inside were not only the clothes he wore during the attack, but a bottle of bleach. A towel. A second phone. It was premeditation dressed as panic. And the jury saw right through it, but what truly shattered the room came during victim impact statements. Alice's father, Clive, spoke slowly, deliberately. He talked about her childhood, her laughter, her dreams. How she wanted to travel, start her own business, maybe even act. He said he still heard her voice sometimes, especially when walking past her old room. And then, with a voice breaking, he said, "She was afraid. She told you she was afraid." And no one listened. The silence in that courtroom was heavier than any gavel. Across the UK, advocacy groups began rallying. One campaign, #ListenToHer, went viral. Thousands of women shared stories of being stalked, dismissed, ignored. Some described waking up to abusive exes outside their windows. Others talked about being followed, messaged hundreds of times, only to be told by authorities, "He hasn't broken any laws yet." Alice's death gave them a voice. And for once, that voice was being heard. In late 2017, the Home Office announced a review into the use of pins. By 2019, proposals were introduced to create stalking protection orders, legally binding restrictions that could be applied even before a criminal charge was brought. GPS tracking, no contact rules, therapy referrals. For many, it wasn't just reform, it was prevention, but for Alice's family, no law could rewrite the ending.
Today, but none of our family, nor any of Alice's closest friends, will ever be the same again. We will live the rest of our lives knowing that Alice should have been here with us, wondering what she would have become, imagining all the people she would have continued to affect with her infectious sense of humour and her sheer love of life. Alice was a kind, incredibly sociable, fun-loving person. She had the ability to light up the room whenever she walked in. We miss her so much. We believe there are important lessons to be learned from what happened to Alice. We didn't think that she was the sort of girl something like this would happen to. With hindsight, there are many signs of stalking and coercive behaviour that we did not recognise. Everyone should know about these signs. This is National Stalking Awareness Week, and we feel there is a need for much more work to be done to publicise and identify stalking and controlling behaviour, to tackle the root causes and to stop them developing out of control. We all hope to do as much as we can from now on, both on our own and in collaboration with organisations such as the Susie Lampley Trust and Women's Aid, to learn lessons, to raise awareness, and ultimately, as we all sincerely hope, to help prevent what happened to Alice